English Academy Plus podcast, your daily dose of real, unfiltered English.
Not simplified English, real English.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jack.
And I'm Emma. It is so wonderful to be here with you all today for a very uplifting episode.
Emma, let me ask you something. When was the last time you tried to learn something completely new? Something that you were absolutely terrible at in the beginning?
Oh, that's easy. A few months ago, I decided to take up pottery. I thought it would be relaxing, like in the movies, but honestly, it was incredibly frustrating. My first few pots looked like lopsided lumps of clay, and I wanted to quit after the second class.
And did you?
I kept going, and eventually, I made a bowl that actually looks like a bowl. But that initial feeling of failure was really hard to deal with.
That feeling of wanting to quit when things get difficult is a universal human experience. But it is also exactly what we are going to challenge today. Today, we are talking about lifelong learning, neuroplasticity, and the concept of the growth mindset.
Because this is our B2C1 advanced track, we aren't just going to give you simple motivational quotes. We are going to explore the scientific and psychological vocabulary you need to discuss personal development, overcoming failure, and the amazing potential of the human brain. So, get comfortable, and let's get into it.
Let's start with the core concept, the growth mindset, a term made famous by psychologist Carol Dweck. She discovered that people generally fall into two categories, those with a fixed mindset and those with a growth mindset.
Exactly. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe that your intelligence, your talents, and your personality are carved in stone. You are either naturally good at math, or you aren't. You are either naturally a good public speaker, or you aren't.
And because you believe your traits are fixed, any kind of failure is devastating. If you fail a test, your brain says, "See, you're just not smart." So, people with a fixed mindset often avoid challenges because they are terrified of looking foolish.
On the other hand, if you have a growth mindset, you believe that your basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point.
Which completely changes how you view failure. If you have a growth mindset and you fail a test, you don't think, "I'm stupid." You think, "I haven't learned this yet."
It's all about that word, yet, but it's very easy to become set in your ways.
Set in your ways. This is a fantastic idiom. If someone is set in their ways, it means they are very stubborn and refuse to change their habits, opinions, or the way they do things. We usually use it to describe older people, but honestly, you can become set in your ways at 25.
So true. When you are set in your ways, the moment you face a difficult new task, your instinct is to throw in the towel.
To throw in the towel. This is a great idiom from the sport of boxing. When a boxer is getting beaten badly, their coach will literally throw a towel into the ring to stop the fight and admit defeat. In everyday English, to throw in the towel means to give up or quit.
If I had thrown in the towel after my first pottery class, I never would have discovered how much I actually love it now.
And the amazing thing is, the growth mindset isn't just a motivational philosophy. It is backed up by hard neuroscience, specifically the concept of neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. This is a brilliant word to know. It refers to the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your entire life.
For a long time, scientists believed that after childhood, your brain was basically fixed. It was a machine that slowly degraded over time. But neuroplasticity proves that the brain is more like a muscle. When you learn a new language or learn to play the guitar, you are literally rewiring your brain.
But building that muscle involves a steep learning curve.
A steep learning curve. This is a very common collocation in professional and academic settings. If something has a steep learning curve, it means it is very difficult to learn at the beginning. And you have to acquire a lot of new information in a very short amount of time.
When you start a new job, for example, the first month usually has an incredibly steep learning curve. You are exhausted because your brain is working overtime.
But that exhaustion is actually a good sign. It means you are pushing boundaries.
To push boundaries, meaning to go beyond the accepted limits of what you thought was possible. When you push your cognitive boundaries, you are actively preventing your brain from stagnating. Speaking of pushing boundaries, a lot of people think that once they graduate university, their learning days are over.
Which is such a tragedy. Lifelong learning is one of the greatest keys to happiness and fulfillment. But people love to use the excuse, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is a very famous, classic idiom. It means that it is very difficult to teach someone a new skill or change their habits if they have been doing things a certain way for a very long time.
But as we just discussed with neuroplasticity, that idiom is scientifically false. You absolutely can teach an old dog new tricks. It just requires patience and the willingness to look like a beginner again.
And when you embrace being a beginner, you start to broaden your horizons.
To broaden your horizons. This means to expand your range of knowledge, interests, and experiences. Traveling broadens your horizons, reading broadens your horizons, and learning a new skill broadens your horizons.
And expanding your horizons makes you a much more interesting person to talk to.
It really does. Now, an essential part of the growth mindset is how we handle feedback, which brings us to today's role play.
In this scenario, Jack is my manager, and we are sitting down for my annual performance review. Jack is going to give me some constructive criticism. I am going to react using a fixed mindset first, and then we will repeat the scenario where I react with a growth mindset. Let's see the difference.
Let's listen. Emma, overall, you've had a solid year. However, I noticed during team meetings, you rarely speak up or share your ideas. We need you to take more of a leadership role in those discussions.
Well, I'm just not a natural public speaker, Jack. That's just not who I am. Some people are born leaders, and some people aren't. Plus, every time I do speak up, I feel like my ideas get shot down anyway. So what's the point?
Emma, overall, you've had a solid year. However, I noticed that during team meetings, you rarely speak up or share your ideas. We need you to take more of a leadership role in those discussions.
I appreciate you pointing that out, Jack. I'll admit, speaking in front of the group is definitely a weakness of mine right now, and I tend to get nervous. Do you have any advice or resources I could use to improve my communication skills in those meetings? I'd really like to get better at it.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack that. The difference is night and day. In the first scenario, Emma used the classic fixed mindset defense. That's just not who I am. She treated her lack of public speaking skills as a permanent, unchangeable character trait.
Exactly. And because I felt attacked, I immediately became defensive and made excuses. But in the second scenario, I completely shifted my perspective. I acknowledged that it was a weakness, right now, and I actively asked for feedback on how to improve.
That is the essence of taking constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is feedback that is intended to help you improve, rather than just pointing out your flaws to make you feel bad.
A person with a growth mindset sees constructive criticism as a gift. A person with a fixed mindset sees it as a personal insult.
Let's take a quick pause. If you are finding these advanced vocabulary drops and psychological insights helpful, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We tackle a new complex topic every single week to push your English beyond the textbook. So Emma, how can our listeners practically apply this growth mindset to their English learning journey? Because let's face it, learning a language is full of mistakes and frustration.
It is the ultimate test of the growth mindset. My biggest piece of advice is to change the way you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Instead of saying, "My English is terrible, I'll never be fluent," try saying, "That sentence didn't come out right. but I'm going to note down the correct grammar and try again next time.
Yes, reframe your mistakes. A mistake isn't proof that you are bad at languages. It's just data. It's a stepping stone.
Exactly. And celebrate the small wins. You don't have to be perfectly fluent to be successful. If you understood 80% of this podcast today, that is a massive victory for your neuroplasticity.
And most importantly, don't compare your Chapter 1 to someone else's Chapter 20. Everyone is on a different learning curve. Focus on your own growth.
All right, it's time for our full key phrase review. Let's recap all the B2 and C1 level language we naturally dropped today.
First, we had to be set in your ways, meaning to be stubborn and refuse to change your habits. He refused to use a smartphone because he was completely set in his ways.
Next, to throw in the towel, to give up or quit. The exam was incredibly difficult, but she refused to throw in the towel.
A steep learning curve. A situation where you have to learn a lot of difficult information very quickly. The new software has a steep learning curve, but it's very powerful once you understand it.
To push boundaries. To go beyond the accepted limits of what is possible. By learning a new language at 60, she is really pushing her cognitive boundaries.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. A proverb meaning it is difficult to change someone's old habits. He claims you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I think he's just being lazy.
To broaden your horizons. To expand your range of knowledge and experiences. Studying abroad is a fantastic way to broaden your horizons.
And finally, constructive criticism. Helpful feedback intended to help you improve. A good manager knows how to deliver constructive criticism without demoralizing their team. Fantastic review. Now it's time for our listener practice questions. We want to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure you try to use at least one of today's key phrases in your answer.
Question 1. What is a new skill you have learned recently that had a very steep learning curve?
Question 2. In what areas of your life do you think you have a fixed mindset? And where do you have a growth mindset?
Question 3. Do you agree that you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Or do you believe in lifelong learning?
Well, that wraps up today's deep dive into the growth mindset and lifelong learning. Remember, your brain is a muscle. Keep exercising it.
Absolutely. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a thumbs up, share it with a friend who might need some motivation, and don't forget to subscribe. And let us know your answers to those practice questions in the comments.
Thanks for tuning in to English Academy Plus. I'm Jack.
And I'm Emma. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.